Moving and Storage, and Thomas Mundy for setting up this interview. And our guest today is Michael Gier. He's award-winning director-producer with Gier Productions, LLC, a full-service production company. Also a celebrity, I would say, Michael, with some of your other things, not just on the documentary side, but the acting side. So I'm ready to dive into this interview. Michael, thanks for stopping by.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been an interesting career for you, and I'm so glad that Media Giant Productions, the Neil Haley Show, and Sergeant Moving and Storage are going to be partnering with the nonprofit. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. What made you transition from performing in Broadway musicals to directing documentaries about PTSD and veterans?
I got older. I did a lot of musicals. I'm a singer, dancer, and actor. And so I was fortunate enough to star in a lot of different Broadway shows all over the country. I did a show in Japan for a year that I starred in. I had an act I booked out on cruise ships that I headlined with. But as you get older, it's harder to find the roles. And I was hired to do a show here in Los Angeles. And it was the last show I did. And it was a 5-year gig. And then during the day, I had my days free. So I started doing a lot more television and film auditions and work, which when the theater show ended, I transitioned to doing more TV and film. And then from there, I realized at that point, I didn't really know much about behind the camera because I'd always been in front of the camera, but it was intriguing to me. So I started learning about behind the camera. And in 2009, started my production company, Gier Productions, to produce films, TV commercials, corporate videos, music videos, you name it. We did it all. And we have clients from all over the world. And so I still act, television and film. I still produce films with actors, and now I really focus and specialize in films with documentaries that are making a difference in people's lives.
So you saw how important it is in this industry to have many different roles. And then being behind the camera, the opportunities are there in front of the camera because it's the networking process. And I think that's something you learned in Hollywood, right? That ultimately it's who you know a lot of times, not just your talent. In so many ways.
Absolutely. To be quite frank, I've got talent and I thank God for my talent, but I'm not the most talented guy. I was great at auditioning. I was great in the roles, but there were a lot of people that were better than I was. So it was contacts, meeting people, being easy to work with so that people wanted to work with me again. And I think that's the case with any business. It's who you know, it's the relationships you build, and it's showing that you're, I guess, honest, hardworking, trustworthy, all those important qualities that people want to work with and hire. Plus, your name gets spread around to other people. So that's all.
So let's talk about the Broadway side of this, because I jumped in really quickly into that nonprofit side, but I want to take us back a little bit into to the days of Broadway. That's amazing to be able to work on that. So you've worked in probably the pinnacle of every industry in acting, with being on Broadway to Hollywood to producing, directing, wearing all these different hats. When we go back into the whole days in Broadway, does that roots of performance help you in so many things today?
Yes. And I do want to qualify. I never performed on Broadway. I performed Broadway shows I starred in Broadway shows all over the country. I've worked in New York a number of times. I performed live at the MTV Awards. I've done a lot of great things in New York, but actually performing on Broadway, I've never done because I was based in LA. So in Los Angeles, I'd audition for the shows. I'd fly to the state in the city or the country where the shows were taking place, do my gig, come back to LA. I have a lot of friends that went to New York, and all of my friends that are Broadway stars and Tony Award-winning performers from Broadway as well. But I was never interested in actually going to New York and actually being on Broadway itself. I loved the West Coast. I was born in San Diego. I love LA. I love television and film. So I wanted to focus my career here on this side. But it allowed me to start all these different Broadway shows in different parts all over the country. And yes, performing has helped me in every aspect of my life. And I used to teach an acting class, and I would encourage shy people to take it just to help them break out of their shell, because when they break out of their shell, there's so much more opportunities for them in business and life and relationships. And so I loved working with people that were a little bit shy just to help them break out, and because it really helped me. I'm actually a naturally shy person, and I can get on stage, I can get in front of thousands of people, I can do television, whatever. But the reality is I'm an introvert and I'm a naturally shy person. I've just learned to overcome it with the entertaining I've done over the years.
And that's interesting when you talk about that, the entertaining you go and that. So when you talk about, getting to do theater is so much different than film. Does that help you in a lot of ways, saying we're not going to take 20 takes, especially when you're a director? That, okay, because I got used to being able to do this and train my actors and help develop them so that you're not constantly another take in the process.
Yeah, the great thing about theater, which I really miss, is that it's live. Whatever happens, it happens live. I was a tap dancer, and I was in the middle of a tap routine, and I landed on my butt right in the middle of the show in front of the audience. I can't say, cut, let's take that again. I've got to get back up on my feet, brush it off, try to make the audience laugh and get back to the tap routine. In film, there's a lot less pressure. And in my opinion, it's a lot more boring. I sit in my dressing room, I wait for them to call me when I'm not directing. I wait for them to call me and they go to set and then they reset for another angle and you're back in your dressing room hanging out. And it really is boring. I don't like it as much as live theater, but when I'm directing, I love it because you're on set the entire time. I'm working with great actors. And yes, I can keep things moving. Being an actor and a director, that helps me to work with the actors to get what I want from them and to move quickly so that we don't have to do too many takes, because I'm sure, like me, they don't like to have to keep doing it over and over again.
So you got voted MTV's #1 video of all time in 2001. Talk about what was that guerrilla style shoot and how do you know you were creating something legendary?
We didn't know we were creating something legendary. So this is Fatboy Slim is the artist. His real name is Norman Cook. And Spike Jonze was the director and producer. Spike Jonze is very famous. Most people know his name. He's an Academy Award winner. He's won 1 million MTV awards. And he created a fictional group called the Torrance Community Dancers. The whole world thought we were real. Spike hired us as actors/dancers. And when we did the audition, it was a very serious, heavy-duty dance audition. When we did the performance, which ended up being in the music video for Praise You is the name of the song, it was the stupidest, goofiest dance moves I've ever seen. You did not need to be a professional dancer. All that dance auditioning they put us through. There were 4 guys, 3 gals. Spike was in the group, and our choreographer, Michael Rooney, was also in the group. So they hired 2 guys and 3 gals from the auditions. We went out there and rehearsed, then we performed, and it was made to look like we were this, like I mentioned, a Torrance community, local community dance group that got our big break in Hollywood. And we're in this music video. So we had to put on characters and we dressed goofy. We acted like we were leftovers from the 80s. We didn't want to leave the 80s. And we did press interviews all over the world because the song became so popular. And again, I don't know why. People loved it. To this day, people getting married all over the world, they'll get their whole groomsmen and bridesmaids and everything together, and they'll do and reenact our dance moves from the Praise You music video.
Wow.
And for some reason, it just took off. And Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim, he's still doing performances all over the world, 15, 20, 30,000 people at a time. And so it just has not stopped. And that has been his #1 song. And as goofy as the music video is, we shot it 1 time, by the way. Everything in that music video is exactly what took place. We had the security come out. They stopped the music because they didn't like where we were in front of a movie theater. And amongst all their lines of people waiting for movies, we were in the way, which really irritated them. So they turned off our music. And then the crowd starts yelling, "Let him dance, let him dance." And so they felt the pressure. So they backed off. And then Spike Jonze, his character was Richard Coffey. But Spike went over, turned the music back on. We got back going with our music video. Everything you see actually happened as you see it.
Wow.
And what I think was fascinating to the whole world was that they thought it was real. They thought we were this little group and what happened in the performance was real, but we, the group, was not real. So like I said, we did press interviews all over the world and everybody thought we were this legitimate group. It didn't come out till a long time later that we weren't. And it was funny. Some of the press would ask Spike, "Richard, aren't you're Spike Jonze?" Richard would, in character, be like, "What are you talking about? Spike who?" And it was Spike Jonze. But the world was so confused because they're like, "This guy looks like Spike, but he goes by Richard and he's with this group." And so it was really funny that Spike's brilliance fooled the entire world.
So, and basically being part of that production, how did that kind of help you as a producer later on and director?
I'd say it probably didn't. I've done 1 million jobs. I've worked with Brooke Shields. I've worked with Ben Kingsley, the wonderful actor. I've worked with so many actors and stars and celebrities, and they were all just jobs. It didn't help me as a director. It was a job. I got paid.
So how do you direct people?
I think because I don't even know how to answer that question. Being an actor, I know what they go through. As a director, I know what I want. I think I know how to talk to the actors to get what I want out of them emotionally. I also make sure I hire really good actors when I'm during the audition process. That's really key. And every project I've done, I've had amazing actors. Even in my current film, it's a film called The Heroism and Resiliency of 9/11. It's going to be released in 2026. For the 25th anniversary, I hired over 30 actors for the different reenactments that we did. We filmed a lot of things that took place on 9/11, but with actors as reenactments. And my actors just did an outstanding job, very emotional, and everything that I needed. You get that through the audition process. You get that by giving them some time to get the emotion going. And then the camera just picks it up and you put it together in editing and voila, it's beautiful.
Bam, that's amazing. And I think that being able to pick the right actors, what is that process for you? Like, how do you prepare yourself before it happens and before casting comes? and you just know exactly what you're looking.
What's funny is you have an idea in your mind of what you're looking for, and then sometimes an actor will come in and do something completely different that you're like, wow, that was brilliant. So sometimes you hire somebody very different than what you were expecting you'd hire, and then they just add so much more than what you ever planned. But yeah, it's just a whole audition process. Before COVID, everything was in person, which I prefer. As an actor, I prefer going in person. And when I'm auditioning people, I prefer seeing them in person. After COVID, everything's gone where all the actors self-tape. So you put out the casting call and then everybody self-tapes and sends it in.
That's hard. I ended up doing one audition. One of my guests said, hey, because you're a talk show host, why don't you audition for this? And I just couldn't memorize the lines. Isn't that crazy? It was telling me to memorize such difficult, goofy lines. I did, and I'm like, I'm done. No, thank you. Acting's not for me. I'd probably be good on the director producer side of things because of how I produce so many podcasts and understand the whole thing. But I don't know. It's so hard to memorize lines. Tell me that process. Maybe I'm just making it too difficult for myself, or I don't want to put the time in to memorizing them.
Yeah, it's probably not putting in the time in. It does take time, but also the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it and you know it works for you, because you have to be able to get the lines in your head so well that you can walk around and do anything, completely distracting your mind and still say the line. So it's just in there. You don't even have to think about the line. It's just there, or lines. Sometimes I did a movie called RZ9 and I played a military general leader guy. And I had this long, big chunks of paragraphs and paragraphs of dialogue talking to all of my military guys. And I was like, oh my gosh, it took forever to memorize, but I had to get it to where it was just rolled off my tongue and I could just worry about being in the moment and giving the character. I was always an irritated guy yelling at people. I could be more into that character versus worrying about lines. It was just there. I used to do soap operas when I was younger. I did every soap that's in LA. I think I did 5 different soaps. And they're the hardest ones, especially for those who are series regulars. Every day, they've got a whole new set of a lot of pages they have to memorize after they filmed all day long. They then are given a whole nother set of pages for the next day. And you film the entire hour soap opera, minus commercials, in one day. And so you don't get many takes. Like Young and the Restless, they say, we are only doing one take. You better get it right. If a star really messes it up, they'll go to a second take. But other soaps, they will give you 2 or 3 takes, but it's just high pressure. And that's why sometimes the acting isn't always the greatest. Many times it is. Sometimes it's not, though, because they just got the script the night before. They're still trying to remember the lines on set the day of. And it's just really high pressure. And so the actors in soaps that can pull it off, like Deidre Hall, if anybody remembers her, brilliant soap actress and one of the stars. So she was throughout the entire hour every single day, and she nailed her lines. She nailed her acting. That is a gift. That is not something that's easy to do.
So did you do a lot of soap? What show were you on?
I was here in Los Angeles. I was on Young and the Restless. I had a recurring role on Bold and the Beautiful, playing a doctor. Sunset Beach, which is now gone. Did I say General Hospital? Yeah, I did General Hospital, which was a show I grew up watching back in the Luke and Laura days. I loved that show because my mom got me hooked. And so I was so excited to finally get to work on General Hospital. And then I also worked on Passions. I had a recurring role on that. And I can't remember the guy's name he was a new star on the show. He now has his own hit TV show. He's a massive star now. I don't watch his shows, so I forget his name. But I always joke with my friends, I gave him a start. Because he and I worked together on Passions. We did 2 days and 8 scenes together. And
it kills me. I'll say one soap star comes to mind. I've probably interviewed 100, but Sean Kanan. And he talked about all the stuff he did for soaps versus the days in Karate Kid or now Cobra Kai and all that and how that worked. Nice. And then I also spoke to somebody that was Jesse's mom, and should come to me in a second from the show Jessie. And she's really famous, and she's always on the soaps. She's one of the queens of it. And I can't think of her name right now. She'll kill me, but she knows me. And that's my memory in a way. I interview so many people. I know them by picture. I can picture them right now.
Yeah.
Can't name them. And I'm sure that happens because we just know so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my issue.
Oh, yeah. All right. So the mission behind Wounded Heroes. You've said, I produced this film to save lives after learning 20 plus veterans die by suicide daily. And you basically, what was your biggest discovery during those 3 years of research into alternative PTSD treatments?
So I met a guy in San Diego named Carl who was on 18 medications and they had just lowered it to 16. He was in his late 20s, young guy. And I'm like, how is it possible this young guy is on 16 medications for his post-traumatic stress? Especially since he said it didn't help. The side effects were horrific. And I thought there had to be something better out there than just dishing up medications. And so that set me on the 3-year journey and hoping to find things that would work, that would get them off the medications and get them their lives back. And we found amazing treatments that are featured in the film Wounded Heroes. And then that turned into, we wanted to produce a film with actors also called Wounded Heroes. And in that film, we're going to be featuring a real life alternative treatment that is changing lives and giving their veterans their lives back. So they can watch quality Hollywood movie, but also get a real life treatment that's going to change their lives in a positive way. And I'm doing this with DDS for Vets out of Florida. They're a nonprofit, and I'm working with them. We're doing this through donations, whether it's one big donor or a lot of little donors donating through DDS for Vets, which is .org. And we can raise the money. And then what we want to do is produce the film, save lives, veteran lives, through the message of this film and this real life alternative treatment that's in the film.
So tell me more of your work with DDS.
I don't even know how long it's been now. I think 4 years ago was the first time, 4 or 5 years ago, I went to their very first gala, and I met through a friend, Tom Mateo, introduced me to them. He lives there in St. Port Lucie, which is where DDS for Vets is located as well. And Tom, when we did Wounded Heroes, the movie with actors that we're hoping to produce, Tom is a Vietnam veteran, 6-time Purple Heart recipient. He was just honored by President Trump in the White House just recently for his work, not only in Vietnam, but his work to help veterans his entire life. And Tom has been with me from the beginning as far as the screenplay in this movie, Wounded Heroes. And my lead character is named after him. The story itself is not about Tom, but I wanted to put Tom's name in the film, and in Vietnam, he was called Stormy. So my character's lead name is Stormy. And then some of the flashbacks to Vietnam that take place are Tom's actual real stories of what he experienced in Vietnam. So he introduced me to Deb Doherty, and she and I became friends, and I went out to DDS for Vets, and I've been donating my time to help them with video production and any advice I can help. If they call them, I'm there for them. They do great work helping veterans. They provide service dogs at no cost to veterans, which I think is spectacular. Yeah. They train the dog. And then once the dog is fully trained, then they do a presentation and then give the dog at no cost to the veteran. And so they're doing great work, and they really want to do more work with veterans through this movie and help more veterans through this movie. So that's why we've partnered together, raising donations, raising funds, and then we hope to produce the movie and save more lives.
Okay. And so going into this, so I understand all the brand involving helping veterans. We talked about specifically first, you found out about the Wounded Heroes. Healing the Heroes of 9/11, we dived in a little deeper into all 5 first responders experienced life-changing results. And that's in your healing of the heroes of 9/11, and that's involving in your film, right? Your first or your documentary?
Yep. Another film called Healing the Heroes of 9/11. And Dan Jarvis asked me to produce that for them. And we went to New York and found 5 first responders who were still battling post-traumatic stress after 20 years of experiencing 9/11. And we interviewed them beforehand. And then we also put them through a treatment called TRP, Trauma Resiliency Protocol, which is a neurological intervention that's explained in the film. And then we filmed them again after they went through that to see if there was a difference, a significant difference in their lives. And there was for all 5. One of the first responders couldn't even go back anywhere near the memorial where the towers were located, or the museum. He hadn't been there in 20 years.
Wow.
And on film, after going through TRP, we filmed him going back to the memorial, and we filmed him down in the museum because the museum let us film. And so, yeah, I mean, we saw life changes from people who had been battling post-traumatic stress for 20 years actually go to where they thought they'd never be able to go because of Trauma Resiliency Protocol.
And so is this film related to the other film in a way?
Yes. They're separate films. I produced Wounded Heroes on my own. My wife and I funded it. And then thankfully we had some people that were appreciative of the film. So they actually reimbursed us. So we broke even and got our money back at least. And we're able to help a lot of people. Dan Jarvis saw Wounded Heroes. I didn't know him at the time. And then he reached out to me and said, will you produce a film for us? Here's our idea. I said, yes, of course. So it happened to be about post-traumatic stress simply because he had seen my other film about post-traumatic stress and wanted to show what their protocol, TRP, could do. And actually, I'm sorry, I knew Dan because I did interview him in Wounded Heroes, my documentary. I didn't know him before that, but that's where I met Dan. I interviewed him to talk about TRP and how it made a difference in his life as a veteran himself, as a retired sheriff, somebody who had post-traumatic stress, somebody who was very suicidal, and TRP saved his life. He said he no longer had post-traumatic stress. Then he started a nonprofit and wanted to help other veterans. So I interviewed him for Wounded Heroes, the documentary. That's how he heard about what I do. And I learned about him. And that's when he also later on called me and said, now I want to do a film. And I said, okay, let's do it.
So are the treatments different in a way between the two films?
No. In Wounded Heroes, I've got a lot of different options as far as treatment options. 3 of them, though, are neurological interventions. And what Dan does, and it's from healingthehero.org, is where people can go to learn about Dan and the treatment TRP. I'm actually on the board, but it's healingthehero.org. And they give the treatment away to veterans and first responders at no cost. So it's absolutely free. They just want to save lives. And what's great about it is you have veterans and first responders who had post-traumatic stress, who are the ones now working with people who do and helping them through the treatment. So they're going and working with somebody who knows what they're going through versus the VA with many times the psychiatrists and the doctors they make them see. They have no clue what that poor veteran is dealing with. They've never experienced it. And so it makes things difficult many times when you work with somebody who's been there, who's done that, who is also suicidal, but now isn't. There's just something, it just works better. And Dan's doing great work through healingthehero.org and saving a lot of veteran lives. And yeah, so it's been very exciting to see that. So it is different, but it was similar to a couple of the things that we were featuring in Wounded Hero.
Do you have any other projects you want to talk about before I let you go?
Just the one I have coming up for about 9/11. It's the Heroism and Resiliency of 9/11. Chris Meek contacted me. He runs a nonprofit called Soldier Strong. He also just recently created the 9/11 Legacy Foundation.org. And they hired me to produce a film for the 25th anniversary. It was I've been working on this since early 2022. So it's been 4 years before it comes out that we've been working on it. The film is finally finished. We just finished it. And Gary Sinise, actor Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, for those who remember Lieutenant Dan, he narrates the film for me. And I have President Bush's chief of staff in the film. I have the CIA director, Leon Panetta, in the film. He's the one who caught Osama bin Laden. He ran the mission at CIA headquarters that took out Osama bin Laden. So that was a great interview. Really nice man, Leon Panetta. Roger Ferguson, who ran the Federal Reserve, and he's an unsung hero. People don't realize what he did to save this country from what would have been financial disaster. So it's just a great film. It's coming out next year. And again, it's called The Heroism and Resiliency of 9/11. People can see the trailer and get more information at the 911film.com.
All right. Where can we find info on you real fast?
Just my name, michaelgier.com. My last name is Gier, michaelgier.com.
And also information on the other organizations. We'll have that in the show notes. Appreciate it, Michael. And thank again, Sergeant Moving and Storage. Go to sergeantmovingandstorage.com if you're in the Port St. Lucie, Stuart, Florida area. Appreciate it, Michael. Thanks again, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just